Okay, I think we're live. Hey, everybody, welcome to Trip Across America. I hope that you're doing well. I am your host, JB Brown, and I am joined by Ms. Carlotta Thompson. How are you, Carlotta?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for letting me come in your group and be live with you. And I just can't wait to share all this information.
Thank you so much. So, listen, folks, I felt like this was a good time. Here's what we're doing. We're all locked in the same place, not in the same place, but we're all kind of in the same situation. A lot of us, we're working from home, we're working from our home office. This is a different routine for a lot of us. Carlotta, are you working from home now, or are you kind of still in your office?
Well, I'm in an office.
Yeah, yeah.
I work from home, but I have three kids that are home, and no, that ain't happening.
Same here, same here. I've got three, and I don't know. I'm sure Alabama's the same way. We have three, and our county, well, the whole state now is doing digital learning days. DLDs is the acronym we've decided to use. And so you guys are all dealing with this all across the country in some different way. So some of you teachers are sending packets home for your kids, and you just became a homeschool teacher sort of against your will, and the pay is terrible for that job. Um, and also, there's some bandwidth issues that pop up sometimes too, because now there's 10,000% more folks online at the same time than there used to be. And so, anyway, we do at least find ourselves with some downtime. And look, these are uncharted waters, and they can be perilous waters for business owners. And so, this series was born out of just a heart for just trying to figure out good resources to at least give people some information, maybe some hope, some encouragement, and some facts to figure out how do I make the best decisions moving forward for my business, whatever business I'm in. And so one of those things that is very clearly a challenge for a lot of people is the CARE Act. And we're going to get to that in a little bit. Looks like, hang on one second. There we go. I had to change that up. There we go. There we go. Yeah, maybe not. That's okay. Remove. All right. So had a little small streaming challenge there, but we'll just stream on the platforms where it's left. So first, though, what I would love to do, Carlotta, is for folks to get to know you a little bit. So, would you mind just telling us a little bit about who are you, where are you from, and what do you do?
Just a little bit about my background. Since I was 14, wanted to be an IRS agent. And so I know, isn't that
What
crazy?
14-year-old says that?
Wants to be an IRS agent. So I got the little booklet at my house. The little booklets that used to tell you like how.
Yeah, sure.
I don't even. They don't send those to us in the mail as much as they used to. But it came in and it was sitting on the bar, and I was like, "Hey, Dad, what's that?" And he's like, "You should read it." And so I started reading it, and I became obsessed with tax law. I love it. It's a passion. I went to college for accounting and went to work at an accounting firm because the IRS doesn't hire that often. Actually, I applied right out of college because it was my lifelong dream since I was 14. And I got the call 2 years later, and I became an IRS agent. And, when I became an IRS agent, the reason why I wanted to do it was because reading the tax law, I got so excited because I knew I could help people. Because there's so many different things that you can do in it to pay less tax. And when I went to work at the IRS, it became really apparent that the IRS is not a place to help business owners. You can do lots of things. You can go in and audit business owners, and I'd spend half my time helping them with strategies and things their accountants miss. But they were like, "Carlotta, like you need to get out in front of this. Why didn't anyone call me and tell me all these things that you're telling me now? Why didn't my accountant tell me this? Like, I hired the best CPA in town, and they did not discuss any of these things." And it became more and more apparent that I needed to get out in front of this. And so I left the IRS with the thought that I was not going to have an accounting firm. I was just going to educate people and do courses and just help them. But I would tell them all the things they could do, and I couldn't find anyone to help them implement it. And so January 1st of 2018, we started an accounting firm, and we implement tax strategies for business owners, and we help them pay the least tax legally possible. We make you save taxes is what I can say, because if we give you a strategy and we say, "Hey, rent your house to yourself for 14 days a year, So it's a tax deduction for your business, a tax free income to you personally. We don't just say that. We actually go do comparisons. We make sure that you actually do something for that 14 days that qualifies, and we do the invoices, and we implement that into your bookkeeping. And there's no other firm in the United States that I have found that does that.
Did you say rent your house to yourself for 2 weeks and then write it off?
So, yeah, like, okay, so you've got your home office deduction, right? So are you in a home office right now?
I am, yep.
Okay. So your home office, that's a different thing. Like you get your home office deduction that you can do every month on your accountable plan for an S Corp. If you're a Schedule C, you do it on your tax return. But you can also rent your home to yourself for 14 days a year for things outside of that home office that you're already deducting. So say you have a dinner for your clients or colleagues or whatever, you can rent your house for that day for those amount of hours to do that. And so maybe your house would rent for, $500 a day. You can rent it, expense it for $500 on the business, and then it would be income to you personally, and it would be tax free.
Wow. So, that's the first time. It's not that often that I'm hit with something that I have never heard before. And that's a doozy of one. Thank you, Carlotta. That's a good one.
Yeah. So, but a lot of business owners are doing that, and they're like, oh, that's too much trouble. I don't want to do all that. So we do everything for them. You don't have to do anything. We just go through it with you. We do the invoice for you. We do everything so that we have the proper documentation if you're ever audited. And all you do is make sure that you actually give us the day that you used it for business. So some people, they can't do podcasts in their home office because they don't have the right boundaries, I guess, in the home office. So I see a lot of people do podcasts in their bedroom because it's private. And so you can rent your bedroom to yourself or that office space to yourself for those 3 hours, and we can do see how much it would cost to do that outside the home, and we do an invoice for that amount.
That's brilliant. I love it. Well, listen, folks, if you want to connect with Carlotta, I'm going to put her back up here right there. So it is www.carlottathompson.com, and you can reach out to her there. I already went to her page, and she has some nice resources there that you can find. And it looks like on there, Carlotta, folks can also schedule a free introductory session just to chat with you and see if there's maybe a way for it to make sense for you to work with them. Does that sound right?
Right, and I do all of my own calls because I thrive off helping people, right? So like everyone that calls is not a good fit, but if I give you something that will change the way you're doing your business or help you save a little bit of money, it was worth my time to do that. And so we have a team of tax strategists, but I do all of the calls myself at this time. I'm sure that'll change over the years, but like I just love talking to people and helping them. And that's what gives me energy. So yeah, if you want to get on a call, you can schedule a call with me.
Awesome. Yeah, I share brain with you on that. I don't get as much time to talk to folks for free, although lately I have, but I haven't had as much time to talk to folks for free. But one of the things I enjoy the most is just when you are able to help someone, especially business owners, because we are business owners. And so we understand how profoundly difficult it is, how rewarding it is, but that sort of push and pull of the grind. And so when you're able to give someone who kind of does the thing we do, and it doesn't matter what type of business somebody's in, I'm going to guess you feel the same way. If you can do something that you see, boom, there's a light bulb that went off, and all of a sudden this person realizes, oh my gosh, that's so helpful for me. Like this has made a measurable impact in what I'm doing. That is rewarding. So love to hear that. Well,
you'll always be, my quote is serve with all your heart. You will always have abundance. And so I know that if I get on those calls and I can help someone that has a business owner, I don't take individuals that don't have a business because I help business owners pay the least tax legally possible. That's what I do. So I don't take individuals that don't have some kind of business. But my goal is to help you save tax dollars. I don't like to get on TurboTax and help people, but I have been known to say, pull up your TurboTax and I'll help you through this, because I know those business owners, all of us are growing, right? Like we all want to have that business where we can afford to have that tax strategy input every month. So if I'm helping them when they're small, they're going to know that I'm going to help them whenever they do have some strategy that they can implement.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Well, there's always an enormous need, and all the business owners who are watching now, and far more, will watch this recorded on either YouTube or in the group. Or there's also this will be, by the way, folks, this will be waiting until we're almost there. We're almost at 10 episodes, and we've only been doing this for a week, so we're going pretty quickly. But what I will do once we have 10 episodes is I will take the audio, have it edited up, and this will be on iTunes and all the others as well. So you'll be able to kind of listen in any way that you want to. However you want to consume this information, you can do that. We just want to be here to help you and provide value. Likewise, hit us up on the page. It's TREP Across America Facebook group. That's the best place to go to interact with the community. It's full of entrepreneurs of all different stripes. A lot of phenomenal resource sharing going on there and information about what works, what doesn't work. And also, what I would suggest to you is that if there's a topic that you are interested in, so if as Carlotta and I unpack the bulk of what we're going to talk about today, if something pops up that sparks a thought and you want some more information about that, you can interact with Carlotta right in the group. She's in there. Or if it's something that would warrant a further discussion, additional podcast, we can do that for you. So just let us know what it is that you're looking for and what would be helpful, and we'll do it. So without further ado, how many of you out there, and I'll raise my hand of myself when I ask this question, how many of you out there have tried to figure out exactly what is going on with the CARE Act? And I'm going to raise my hand. I've tried multiple times, and I'm
raising my hand.
You're raising your hand too, yeah. Everybody I know.
It's changed every day. I mean, really, I get up in the morning, I'm like, okay, what's changed today? Because I need to make sure that I'm staying ahead of that. I am doing lots of reading about it, studying the tax law, studying the guidance that's coming out from the SBA and the Treasury Department, because it's changing. I mean, they'll change it at night, the day before the banks are supposed to implement it the next day. So it is definitely confusing.
So it's ready, fire, aim a little bit.
Yeah. So just to give you an example, most of you have heard of what's called the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. They have changed the calculation 3 times already. And they're still not finished. They're still changing it 3 times in a week. How are banks supposed to even know what to do at this point? Every one of them you call says something different. So everything that we'll be going over in this is subject to change, but this is the newest information as of right now. Like I said, it could change now. Big things aren't changing, right? Like the big things are staying the same. So pretty much most of the information that we share has been the same since it started. But there are little nuances like interest rates that are changing, or on the EIDL, the amount of money we're getting, it's been heard that it may change. So there are things that are the little things that are changing, but the gist of it is staying the same, if that helps.
It does. So the best way to go about this might be, first and foremost, just very basically, what is the CARE Act and why should entrepreneurs care? You see what I did there? I worked really hard. I am so full of dad puns with 3 kids. It's not even funny. So
you should definitely be taking advantage of hiring your kids. So you can shift some of your income to them. So we can talk about that sometime. But
brilliant. I love that. That sounds like an entirely separate episode, because I know what you're talking about, but I have a feeling that very many entrepreneurs have no idea what you're talking about. She talked about hiring your kids. And actually, I'm going to write this down because that's an incredible strategy that most people don't even know about.
Right. And some people think you can just go hire your kids and pay them, and that's not true.
Right.
So if you're as an S Corp, you have to set up a management company and you have to pay them and do payroll and have separate accounts. And so one of the things that I was telling you, we make sure all of that's done. When we tell someone to hire their kids, we set up the family management company for them. We do the W-2s for them. We do the bookkeeping for that family management company. We set up the company for them. I mean, everything. So everything we do is all inclusive. There's no way you don't save money working with us, because we're going to make you do it. It's not just a thought in your head. It's okay, if your kids will work for you and you put them to work, we will do the rest. Now, obviously, we're not making up something that's not true. I mean, if your kids don't work for you, we're not going to say they do. But, I mean, that's what we do. So what is the CARES Act? I know we got off on a tangent, but I get excited when business owners are like, yes, I have 3 kids. And
I love it. Yeah.
You need to be hiring them. Okay, so the CARES Act was put into place because the government wanted to give us money as business owners, pretty much. They know that the economy has fallen, and so they're trying to put money back into the economy. And the way the CARES Act was written was it was going to be thrown back into the economy as fast as possible, and it was going to be $2 trillion. Now, the CARES Act was I think, greatly written. It was definitely aired on the side of helping business owners a lot. Now, as different things have come out, it's not been near as helpful as it was meant to be. But it's still very helpful. But when you get other people interpreting the law or just have no care for the law, it becomes where it's not as great as it was meant to be. And I feel like that Congress meant for it to be better than probably what we're going to see at the end. But the CARES Act did a few things. It's a huge, it's like 800 pages, but there are, I would say, 3 things, well, actually probably more than 3, but 3 things that are big that came out of it for business owners. There are grants, there are loans, and there is unemployment. Oh, I would say 4. There's also tax credits. So grants, loans, unemployment, tax credits for business owners. Now, most of you who are business owners know that as a business owner, you normally can't even get unemployment. So one of the things I'm going to talk about in this is unemployment for business owners, because that is huge, and it's a huge strategy to be using right now. So I'd like to first talk about the grants / loans. We're going to go over them both together, because the way the CARES Act was written is they're really both you can't do one without doing the other. All right. So we're going to talk about 2 different ones. One is called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and one is called the Paycheck Protection Program. Okay. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan is through the SBA. In order to fill out for this, you go to sba.gov. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan is a $10,000 up to $10,000 grant for any business that you have. So this means if you're a sole proprietor, you can apply. If you're an S Corp, you can apply. If you're a partnership, you can apply. Anybody can apply for this that has any kind of business. Okay. You only need 2 things when you apply as far as numbers go. You need your revenues from 1 of 2019 to January 31st of 2020, and you need your cost of goods sold, which for most of you will be 0. There is I'm not going to go in how to fill this out, because I've got a video on my page of how to do it. On my tax strategy page, there is a video that has my hand up like this, and this is 5 minutes to fill out the EIDL. The EIDL, it only takes 5 minutes to fill out. Now, what you're really doing is applying for a loan, but the first $10,000 is a grant, or the advance that they give you is a grant. So what happens on this is you go in and fill out this 5-minute application. You put in your bank account number. They're supposed to send that to you within 3 days. Now, has anyone even received this yet?
Nope.
I haven't heard of one person receiving any money yet. I don't believe any has been sent out.
Everybody's got their phone out, like, let's see, refresh. Nope, no money. Still no money.
Yeah, no one has gotten the money, the advance. And I get asked that question, multiple times a day, but no one's gotten that. But you still need to go apply. So like I said, SBA.gov. Now you're applying for a loan, but the first advance is a grant. So what happens is you go apply for this. You get your advance, and then they're going to ask you for more documentation. At that time, if you don't want to apply for the full loan, I would just say don't give them any more information. You can go ahead and apply for the full loan though, and the interest rate is 3.75 for 30 years. Now that's what it is today. Obviously, I wouldn't think that would be changing every day, but every time I look at something, they change it. So 3.75 for 30 years. Now, people get confused on what the Economic Injury Disaster Loan can be used for. It can be used the definition says it can be used for anything that could have been paid had the economic injury, the coronavirus, not occurred. So really that's any business expense, okay? If you're an S Corp, you can even pay yourself wages through it, or you can pay, for your advertising or whatever you would have done had the coronavirus not occurred. So it's very much definitely can be used for a lot more purposes than the other one we're going to talk about. All right. So if you learn nothing else from this webinar today, you need to go apply for the economic injury disaster loan. Everyone should apply for that. You should at least apply for the $10,000. Now, like I said, up to $10,000. Originally, we thought everyone was getting $10,000. Most of us still think everyone's getting $10,000, but we have heard it could be less. They have not given us the for sure on how they're going to determine that. So does anyone have any questions about that? I don't know if there's anyone live on here, but if there is, if you have any questions, type them. If not, send me a message on it. But everyone should apply for that.
Yes, I've got a couple of questions here. One of them you sort of alluded to, but like you, I don't know anyone who filled out the form and then actually got anything back, whether it was the email and certainly not the funds. Have there been any guidance at all on when folks should start to hear about that initial 10K? No, nothing.
I've not heard a date, period.
Yeah. And then
no one's got emails
either. No, nothing.
Some people did get like a confirmation email or something, but I mean, I've heard of like 1% of people actually getting anything.
Yeah. So I guess the moral of that particular point is, folks, if you did it and you didn't get anything back and you haven't heard, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get it. It doesn't mean that you did anything wrong.
It just means the government is slow.
Yeah, they're slow and they're struggling. And now, so the next point, and this is, so that first $10,000 is, I think, fairly straightforward. I think most folks have, to your point, up to $10,000, depending on if they run out of money or not. I think a lot of folks kind of have a good idea of that. Where I think what people do get confused is the second part of what you talked about, which is the actual loan part of the EIDL through SBA. My understanding is that one's going to come with a more robust, in-depth vetting process.
Yes.
Almost like applying for any other loan. I'm guessing it'll be a little easier to get in theory than a normal SBA loan, but you'll have to provide probably a lot more documentation. Is that about right?
Documentation.
Yeah. So that's more of like if you ever done a mortgage, of course, most of us have done more than one. That's considered a full doc type situation where you're going to have to provide, basically validation that what you're saying is accurate about your business. So show them financials, bank statements, that et cetera, et cetera. If you're selling physical products, it's invoices that you actually have purchased things, payroll, yada, yada. So that doesn't mean it's bad though. It could be incredibly valuable because listen, if you can get, and what are the limits on that, Carlotta? I don't remember.
That it is, let me make sure they haven't changed it. It was, I think,
yeah.
That's why I printed off my cheat sheets because everything keeps changing. Okay, so the maximum on the EIDL is $2 million.
$2 million. Okay.
They have not told us though how they're going to calculate how much you can get.
How much you're going to get?
There's no form, nothing. That's just the maximum you can get, right? So we don't know. Like, is it true that some banks are asking for more disclosures? Yeah, I'm sure, because the SBA hasn't given anything yet.
So the banks are flying blind here, right? So let me add this, because, and I think you know this, but a lot of folks don't. So you have two distinctly related but separate situations going on in parallel. One is all of this EIDL PPP part of the CARE Act, where it's banks sort of being the intermediary between, or the SBA between the funds and your business. That's one issue. But the banks, they don't really understand what's happening because the guidance is like trickling out over time from the government. The government's saying, no, go, you're good. And the banks are going, well, wait a minute, this isn't how we do business on a day-to-day basis. We don't just give stuff to people with no guidelines. So there's a disconnect between the bank and the government. The same exact thing actually is happening between, there's another component of this that President Trump signed into law or executive order, whatever it was, which is the idea of extended unemployment insurance, which you might think doesn't apply to you if you're self-employed, but it does. It might, because depending upon the nature of your unemployment and the nature of your business, you might be eligible for what looks to me to be a very broad program to give you $600 a week. The problem is, like the other side of this equation with the 10K and the business funds, that's going to be administered at the state level by state level unemployment agencies. Well, when you go to the state unemployment agencies, all of them have a giant disclaimer that says, we know the government is saying you can just come to our website and apply, but we don't have any guidance yet. So that doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to do it. It means we don't know what to do. And there's a disconnect right now, a significant disconnect between the government and the funds ultimately, and whomever is responsible for distributing those funds to the end user, if you will, which is you and me as a business owner, or as a, if you're an Uber driver, or, I give speeches. So technically I give speeches a lot, and that's part of my income. And of course, conference season not going to happen this year. So technically I would qualify for that. I don't anticipate applying for it, but if I wanted to, or some of you, it would be a little bit challenging to try to figure out what to do. So is that about right, Carlotta? It sounds like the same thing is happening, where you just have this kind of repeating pattern of the government. And I think they're trying. I think they have the best of intentions. It's just, that's a big aircraft carrier, and trying to move it.
The government, like every state agency, their program for unemployment is over 40 years old.
40 years old.
Yeah. And so because I've been having to track this, right, for all my business owners who are like, I need to apply for unemployment. How do I do it? And I'm like, it depends on your state. The states are coming. They're like, look, our system wasn't built for this.
Yeah.
Not to mention, they're getting record number of regular unemployment claims. The government goes out and they're like, and by the way, we're creating a new unemployment called pandemic unemployment. And it's nothing like we've ever done before. So now go build another system to get this information.
Absolutely.
We can't go to the office and apply for it because all of our offices are
closed.
So they're like, we'll give you the money all the way back to when the government order was signed, but we might not even be able to give you this money till after the coronavirus is over.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, everybody's going to be healthy and on the beach by the time people get their money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's really what's happening, because they just don't have this. They don't have the staff. I mean, and I'm in Arkansas, and in Arkansas they were like, well, we have 30 agents answering the phones now, but they have 150,000 people, filing for unemployment, like 30 agents. But normally that'd be plenty, right? Like, we pulled all the resources, and now we have 30 people answering calls. You could try like 400 times a day for 4 days in a row and still not get through.
Well, look, it's all hands on deck. And a lot of these agencies, they had to, in a way, I think, and the federal government, I think this is happening too, they had to sort of fill in a little bit of a blank and make a projection of, okay, here's our normal volume. Maybe we bring that up 3-4x. No. It's probably going to be like 20, 30x. I'll give you an example. Our bank that we use for personal and business. So most banks now are offering some form of, essentially, and this is an interesting financial topic. They're offering essentially a 90-day, really no questions asked forbearance. It affects credit in no way, because it's not even reporting to credit. It doesn't hurt your relationship with the bank. They're just doing it. And candidly, for cash flow purposes, it may make sense. Even if you could pay the bill, it may make sense to do that, because you may be able to use that cash flow in another area that would benefit you a little bit better. So in exploring that idea with our bank, I called in, and it was peculiar. At first, I thought they were trying to pull a fast one. And because the place that you get routed to says we are a debt collector. I'm like, wait a second. I didn't say I wanted to do this. I was just wanting some information on what it was. So I kind of called the lady out a little bit, poor thing. And she said, no, sir. That's just that recorded line happens to be the line that you called into. Every single department at the bank, regardless of whether it's customer service, fraud, compliance, every department is currently taking inbound calls for deferrals. every department at the bank. And this is a good sized bank. It's what do they just call themselves? Truist. It used to be BB&T and SunTrust, and now it's Truist, but it's a big bank. And I think a lot of banks are doing this. And then you've got on the other end of that spectrum, you talk about, to tie this all up to a bow, Carlotta. I don't know if you followed the news with what happened with Wells Fargo customers, and essentially Wells Fargo didn't really give folks water. We're out. You know what? Y'all go figure it out. It's not really our problem. Go elsewhere. I think that's literally the end of one of their communications to their customers. Go elsewhere. Wow. Could you imagine? Now, they obviously have made a calculation that what they'll lose in customers, which they will, is less risky than what they perhaps stood to lose if they, I don't know. It seems as though banks are very nervous about this. Is that the impression you're getting?
Right, they are, because what's happening is, and that's why the banks, one person said, the banks are making you sign a lot more disclosures, because pretty much right now their guidance says, go give this money away and just have the borrower sign all these disclosures saying it's okay. Don't do any calculations for them. They have to calculate it themselves. Now, how many of you could go figure out the calculation for the Paycheck Protection Program?
Yeah, not very many.
But the bank will not help you. And they're like, it's okay. You don't have to do anything. You can verify it a little bit, but not much. And so the banks are like, what? We never loan money like this. We're not doing that. And what I've found is that's why every bank you call is doing something different, because they're nervous that they're going to come back on them. Now, the government says that the banks cannot be held responsible. I mean, if they've done their, if they've gotten all these disclosures, but my gosh, every thing that comes out, they tell them to do a disclosure for it and they'll take care of them. I mean, so you've got a business owner saying that all this stuff is right when they have no idea how to do a calculation. They're just trying to go off of what nonsense they saw in the news, which changes every 5 minutes. And they don't, most of them have tax preparers. They don't have accountants. They don't have someone helping them monthly. So they have no one that can help them. Your tax preparer is not answering your calls right now to help you with a Paycheck Protection Program for the most part.
No, and this is very much, folks, and I don't want to really hammer this point home, because there's a lot of folks who are getting very angry with their banks. And in some cases, it's warranted and it's fair, because there are some banks, and I'm going to use Wells Fargo as an example because it's all public. This is not an out of bounds comment to make or conversation. It's well documented. I would say, as a business owner and someone who's been around a long time, that they're going to come to regret the way that they handled this. There's no question about it, if they don't already, because there's a right way and a wrong way to communicate. And more importantly, folks will forgive you for making a decision that is unpopular as a service provider, but they won't forgive you if you're not upfront and timely about the fact that you're going to do that. So you really have to communicate and give people enough time, because folks in their mind are thinking there's a scarcity here to these $10,000 EIDLs, and candidly, there may be. So, yeah. So
there's a scarcity of the Paycheck Protection Program. I don't know if you saw today on the news that now the Democrats are saying, no, we're not giving you $250 billion more to put into the Paycheck Protection Program unless you give us all this other stuff.
Yeah, we want all these other things in there.
Right. And so there may not be any more money except the $350 billion. Or if there is, it may be a while before anyone gets it. So every day it's something new. So there is an urgency.
So, well, and so if there is a very real urgency, and there's a component, if you will, of first come, first serve, and that's what it is. And you have done something as someone's trusted, financial institution, and maybe they've been with you for years, and you're saying initially, and the government is saying, hey, work with your bank. They'll help you out, work with your bank. And you wait 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, and your bank actually at the end says, we actually decided not to. We'll help you transition to another bank and figure this out. You're at the back of the line, and you're probably not very happy. So that's a good example of not exactly, and we can all learn from that as well. So a lot of lessons that we can learn with what the government's doing and what's happening. And a great one right now to learn is, if you have to make an unpopular move in your business with your customers, give your customers as much notice and transparency as you possibly can, because that's going to mitigate any damage that you run into, instead of trying to be clever about it and maybe scramble behind the scenes to fix it. And then at the very end, at the 11th hour, you're like, actually, we can't help you. This happens in the service business all the time where somebody needs help and you tell them you're going to do it. You tell them you're going to do it. You tell them you're going to do it. And at the very end, oh, actually, I can't do it. Well, they've got a deadline. And there's usually a financial component attached to that deadline. But these banks, Carlotta, to your point, here's where we have to give them a little bit of patience and grace, I think, because these are our neighbors too. I mean, at the end of the day, they're big banks, but the employees are our neighbors and they're people doing their best. It's a little bit like if I'm hanging off the edge of a building and I'm holding you by one hand and you can't see below you because you're looking up at me and you're looking at me to help you. And I say, hey, there's a net that's going to go underneath you. We're going to move it underneath you and it's going to be totally safe. Jump. So when I say let go, trust me, you let go. And you look at me and you say, okay, JB, I'm going to let go. Is the net there? Nope, not there yet, but it's coming. It's coming. I promise. Just give me a second. It's coming. You're going to get real nervous the longer I say it's coming. So these banks are in a situation where it's give the money away, just do it. And that's not how they think, especially in the post early to mid 2000s banking world, where back in the day, for those of you who don't know, I ran a good sized mortgage company in the mid 2000s. And we used to give money away without a whole lot of anything, which was crazy, which is why we got ourselves into the situation that happened in 08, where you might have a house and have some equity. And we would say, sure, you want $500,000 of cash out of your home. And you want to just write me a letter saying that you make bird houses and make $100,000 a year. Sure. Why not? Seems legit. And we would do that. And because of that, those got passed around like bad pennies for a long time. And then eventually the music stopped and somebody got caught, holding this ugly bag. And then we all paid for it. So banks have been really well trained by a very strong legislation to be document focused. And right now, the documents are iffy. So they're just nervous and they don't understand what to do. And the government's saying, no, you're good. So it's like I said, it's like you're about to let go here and say, okay, I'm going to trust, but I'm not seeing this net. So at the end of the day, I'm an eternal optimist, but I'm also a realist. So I believe this will get straightened out. But I also believe there are going to be some folks that get left out in the cold because either they didn't understand what this was and they ignored it or didn't do it, or unfortunately, they may have worked through a banking institution where there's just so much misinformation out there that maybe didn't do something right or they waited too long. So what do you think in your business with your clients? So somebody calls you up and it says, all right, Carlotta, the 10K is pretty straightforward. Like it really takes about 5 minutes. I ended up doing it. I almost did it twice because I never got anything like all of you. And so I thought, oh, it must not have worked. But it's very easy. So you can go on the SBA's website, and it's very prominent right there where you apply for the EIDL. And it's a pretty straightforward thing. You just put in a few numbers, boom, 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 you're done. Beyond that, to put a bow on the back half of that loan, what are some scenarios where you would look at clients and say, you know what, it probably does make sense for you to try to apply for this? And maybe some, if you can think of any, where it might not be the best idea.
Are you talking about to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program?
No, I'm actually talking about the actual loan component of the EIDL, not the first $10,000, but the remainder, like you said, up to $2 million, but that doesn't mean you're getting $2 million. Yeah. But what are some scenarios where it might make sense for folks to consider bothering to do that extra paperwork, or maybe some scenarios where it maybe doesn't make sense?
Well, I would say if you are comfortable and you need money to actually make your business succeed, then it would make sense for you to apply for this loan because it's a low interest loan. But if you are not making money or your business isn't doing great or you don't need the money, it may not be for you. Like, would you normally apply for a loan if it was at 4% interest or 5% interest?
Every time.
Then don't do it. Like, if you don't need the money, don't put yourself in that space.
Yeah.
Because, I don't... at first, whenever I first started, I was all about using debt in my business because I need to get it started. But as I've become, good with my cash flow and I don't need a loan, really, what would I do with, I don't even know what I would do with a loan right now. I don't need the money. And so why would I take it? So that's really what you have to decide. Do you need the money? And if you do, the 4.75 or 30 years, like you're not going to ever in your business get rates that low
Ever.
and that long as a business. It ain't happening because
No.
I have amazing credit, and I thought I got some great terms last week, not last week, last month, and it was 5.5%, which is amazing for a business. Businesses are usually like 8 or 9%. I got 5.5% over 15 years, but they can readjust that rate like every 5 years. So they can do it twice in that term.
Still fantastic, though.
It's fantastic, but this is 30 years, 4.75%. Like, it's really, really good. Now, you can't just go and use this money for anything, though. And that's the thing. It has to be for working capital that you would normally like. So I don't, could you go buy a building with it? No, like that's not what it's meant for, or I don't think you can. Anyways, they haven't specifically said what you can use it for, but they did say you can't use it to grow your business, as in like going and doing things out of the ordinary or something like that. But it's for working capital. So if you need it, do it. If not, don't. Like, I don't have a reason to go apply for $30,000 right now of an additional loan because I wouldn't do anything with it. Now, another thing you have to think about is a lot of that. Do you have like employees that you want to keep on no matter what? Like, but if you're not making enough where you could pay back a $30,000 loan if your business was doing well and keeping those, I wouldn't do it. Now, there are not going to be on the Paycheck Protection Program, you don't have to guarantee the money. So you could still do that one. But for me, I would say take out the second part of the economic injury disaster loan if you would need the money for working capital. And that would be anything that you would normally buy in your business that you could buy otherwise.
Yeah, let me I think you did a great job there, and you are similar to me. So I own multiple types of businesses. So one of them is a service-based business, and like you, really wouldn't need it because the margins in a service-based business are pretty high, and the overhead is really fairly low. So I wouldn't really need it. And the only thing I could think I might use it for, if I was only thinking about that business, is maybe some advertising, but it's not really what it's designed for. So I wouldn't even use it. Now, the other businesses that I own, one of them is very heavy in cost of goods sold because it's inventory that's coming from all over the world. And some of that inventory stopped selling directly because of what happened with Amazon and how Amazon sort of shut down and stopped taking a lot of goods in. And also consumer demand for the nature of this particular type of product line just kind of took a pause. It's not a permanent thing, but it's a dip. And so that would be a great example. So those of you who have retail operations who sell products that, you buy them, and whether your own brand or somebody else's, and you mark them up, inventory is a pretty good place to go. Same with folks who are, needing inventory to repair things. So if you have an auto body shop and, you need cash to bring in some more parts, etc. These are just a couple of examples, but there's kind of a little bit of a sniff test and a litmus test for me where if it's travel would be another probably pretty good option. So if you're a motel owner and your vacancy went to 95%, you could probably make a pretty good case for needing that loan to help you get through the rest of your time. Now that puts a pretty good bow, I think, on the EIDL, both components of it. Because remember, it's two pieces. It's that first $10,000, which a little bit less restrictive, and we're still sort of waiting to see what's going to happen with that. And then there's the loan. And then we have the PPP.
Another thing on the EIDL, another thing I'm thinking of, like if you have a lot of payments, if you have a lot of rent, if you have
overhead,
debt, if you normally use debt in your business, you need to apply for this. Yes,
absolutely.
If you don't use debt in your business because you're a service-based business or you don't have a lot of debt, then I wouldn't apply if you don't need the money. But yes, if you have debt, as far as credit card debt, and you would normally use debt in your business, or you have like a contract that you have to pay for, if you have inventory that you've already purchased or you need to purchase to get your business back online, yes, that would be a good way to use this. But just to take it, you need to decide if taking a loan would be good for you.
Yeah, great point. So now we get to the third component of this that, and a lot of folks get very confused between the PPP and the EIDL. But we've covered the EIDL. Now we're going to go into the PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, and that's an entirely separate thing, right?
Yes. So don't get the two confused. The Paycheck Protection Program is all about paying your employees. Okay. Yes. The EIDL is all about paying your expenses and working capital, and it has nothing to do with the two. People are always confusing, like, does the $10,000? The reason why, though, is there is a little transition over, but we're going to talk about that last, so you don't get confused right now. All right, Paycheck Protection Program is all about paying your employees, paying yourself if you're a sole proprietorship, and continuing to employ people. The design of this is to keep people on payroll while your business is not making the money that it could make, so they're not going and filing for unemployment. And that way that you are still able to get some work done. Maybe it's just not at the level that it was before. The Paycheck Protection Program is a loan, but it is a forgivable loan. So the EIDL is a grant. You don't have to do anything for it to be forgiven. It's forgiven no matter what. If you get the money, it's forgiven on the first advance, not the whole loan, the advance, which is up to $10,000. That is a grant. On the Paycheck Protection Program, it's a loan, but then can be forgiven, okay? So they're both free money, but one is free money in advance and then a loan. This one is a loan and then free money.
Got it.
Okay? So the Paycheck Protection Program is based on your employees that you have hired over the past year. You can use either what you paid in 2019 or you can use a year from today. Back. If you weren't in business in 2019 or on a certain date in 2019, you can use January and February of this year. The things that people don't understand about this is S corporations. If you're an S corporation and you as an owner have to be an employee of an S corporation legally by law, if you're not an employee and you're not paying yourself, you might as well not apply for this for you. You can apply for it for your other employees, but you cannot use draws as wages, okay? Right. So that, I know a lot of people, that's been a huge question. Can I use my draws? No.
That might be, and I don't know the answer to this because it's not clear, but that might be the gap between those two things might be where that self-employed freelancer unemployment comes in.
That is exactly where I use it. I say, if you haven't paid yourself or you haven't paid yourself enough for it to be worth it, and you're the only employee of that S corporation, or you have no employees because you didn't put yourself on payroll, I am suggesting don't pay yourself from that business. Don't take any draws. Go get on unemployment for that 4-month period or 3-month period or whatever, how much ever time you want to use it for. That is where I have found that unemployment is the most beneficial for sure. It is also very beneficial for self-employed, but I'll get there in a minute. Okay, so that is one of the biggest questions. One of the other questions that I get asked all the time is, can sole proprietorships apply for the Paycheck Protection Program? And yes, they can. Now, the bank will not help you determine that dollar amount. So every bank is telling you or is saying that a different amount can be used. But what I've seen used the most is based off of your 2019 after your expenses, using that as a sole proprietorship, that amount. But back to, this should be used to pay your employees, right? Yeah. And so that's the biggest part of this calculation is if you have employees, you pull what's in your payroll system. That is pretty straightforward, okay? It's the gross payroll. They have changed that calculation 3 times, but right now it's the gross payroll plus state unemployment. Divided by 12, and that gives you a monthly number, and you multiply that about 2.5. Mm-hmm. That's the max you can get on the payroll protection program. But you can also qualify as a sole proprietorship. And like I said, that calculation, some people are using the 1099s they received from people and taking a gross, dividing it by 12 and multiplying it by 2.5. some people are taking after expenses and dividing it by 12 and multiplying by 2.5. I've seen both from banks. If you are a partnership, when you pay yourself as a partner, or you don't pay yourself, but you're a partnership and your money is subject to self-employment tax, like most partnerships are that you're a general partner in. I have heard that the partnership should apply if they have employees, and then each partner should apply as they're a self-employed individual.
Okay. So it's a combination of both things then. Yeah.
Yes. So bottom line here is, if you pay employment taxes, you should apply.
Mm-hmm.
If you either pay employment taxes for yourself or employment taxes on an employee, you should apply. Obviously, if you're a sole proprietorship or partnership, you're paying self-employment tax on your personal return, you should apply.
All right. I'm going to put that up here so folks can see it.
You should apply. Yeah, exactly. The calculation we can get to the bottom of, but if you paid employment taxes at all, you should apply.
Okay.
And because one of the other questions that we get asked a lot is, if you paid independent contractors, can you count that in your payroll? No, because they can apply. Because they
themselves. Yeah. Yeah, those would be people that you would 1099 anyway, right?
Right. So they can apply. So you can't apply for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that is the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, the amount that you get, like I said, is the equivalent to 2.5 times of the salary, or if you're an independent contractor, 2.5 times of the amount you make. That's what you can get. That's the max you can get. Now, you have to keep your employees on. So, like, if you have 4 employees, you have to have them hired back by June 30th, or keep them on, through the time. But they have to be back on your payroll by June 30th. Now, for most of you watching, you probably don't have a bunch of employees. So that I put that in there because I want you to know that you do have to keep your employees on. Another thing is, how much is forgivable? So this money, you have 8 weeks to use it. And it can be used for paying your employees. It can be used for interest, utilities, and I always forget the 4th thing, without cheating. Let me see where that is. But let's see. I always forget the 4th. Do you know what it is?
It's not mortgage or rent, is it?
It's okay. Here it is. Salaries, rent, utilities, interest. Okay. I'm sorry. I always forget the 4th. And every time it's a different one, I forget. Okay.
Which could include rent if you own your own building, and a lot of folks do this. So if you've got your own building that you own personally and your business is paying rent to you, then that's kosher, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Or if you're paying yourself a salary, if you're a sole proprietor or you're an S corp that has paid yourself a salary and you're taking this out for you, you just pay yourself more salary. Or you can pay your rent, or you can pay, but you can use that money for those 4 things. And also health insurance is included with employee compensation. So
okay.
It's the health insurance that would qualify for the healthcare benefits. So those are the 4 things. Now, if you're self-employed and you're paying your own health insurance, it's a little tricky, so I don't know, because sometimes they don't include that. It's really only group healthcare. We don't know what they're going to say yet on that. So if it's your own health insurance, I would say I just paid myself more. That way you don't have to get into that sticky situation, because health insurance for business owners is always sticky.
Yep.
So that's pretty much what you need to know about the Paycheck Protection Program. It is a forgivable loan. You can use it for the 4 things, and it is 2.5 times of your payroll or your income from your business, sole proprietorship.
All right, 2.5 times payroll. All right, so what have we missed in the CARE Act that people need to know?
So you need to know, we didn't really go into unemployment that much. You should apply for unemployment if you are a sole proprietorship and you can't get the Paycheck Protection Program, or you haven't got it yet. I would go ahead and apply for that time period that you can't work. Now, if you're still making money in your job, especially after expenses, you're probably not going to qualify. It needs to be that you're actually not making money. Every one of the unemployment applications are tricky. So you've got to be really sure that you don't fall into some of their traps, because otherwise you won't get approved. And you also should apply for the unemployment if you're S corp, if you're not able to work, or you're not making enough money, or you can pause your payroll to yourself. If you don't have enough work history, if you're this is for S corps, and you only paid yourself for like 1 quarter, you didn't pay yourself for the whole year, you may not have enough history on unemployment, but you still can get the pandemic unemployment. So you still need to apply, okay? So that's my suggestion. Make sure that you apply for unemployment if you're a business. If you're not making any money from your business, or you pause those paychecks, apply for unemployment. The next thing are the credits, all right? So with the CARES Act and phase 1 or phase 2, they came out with some credits that us as business owners can get. So I want to go over those, because they are things that your accountant probably will need to help you with, but at least we can go over the overview of them. And it has to do with paid sick leave for workers. So, and this is a little hairy, because it actually is a legal thing that you've got to also make sure that you're doing. So the CARES Act said, all right, everybody, no matter who, has to pay their employees if they take off for the coronavirus, and you don't have a choice. And usually, as small business owners, if they implement something like that, there's an exception for people under 500 employees or 50 employees. But for this, in the act, it was like everybody has to do it.
Yeah.
And so if you have an employee and they say, I need to take leave to take care of my family for the coronavirus, you have to let them go, and you have to pay them. So what has happened is the government was like, okay, well, some of us small business owners, we can't afford to pay people that aren't working, because obviously some of them we can't afford to pay anyway. And so they came out and they said, well, we will give you an exception if you can prove it's a hardship. But you have to be able to prove with paperwork that it would be a hardship on your business not to pay this. So that's the small business protection. If you're under 50 employees, you can apply for that if it would threaten your business, okay? But it's paid leave. The act provides the employees 2 weeks of paid sick leave at 100% of the employee's pay if they're unable to work, all right? Now, you can also get a paid sick leave credit for that. And so for an employee who is unable to work because of the coronavirus quarantine, self-quarantine, you are eligible for $511 per day, up to $5,110 for 10 days for a credit for paying those people, okay? So if you can read between the lines, you could use this for yourself. So that's just another strategy that you can use if you can't get some of the other stuff. So also, if an employee is caring for someone with the coronavirus, or is caring for a child because the child's school is closed, well, that's pretty much every employee we got.
Yeah, it's everyone.
So eligible employees may claim a credit of 2/3 of the employee's regular pay rate of up to $200 per day, $2,000 in the aggregate for 10 days. Okay, so that is the paid sick leave credit. Now, on which you're required to pay, you're required on the 2/3. You're also required to give them leave of 2/3. So it's the same. Like if you're required to give them 100%, you're allowed the credit of 100%. If you're required to give them 2/3, you're allowed the credit of 2/3. So that is what we're looking at for credits. there's also a credit for if you have to close, there's up to a $10,000 credit, or if your business drops substantially, more than 50% in a quarter, there is a up to $10,000 credit. But that is a calculation, and it is credit for sole proprietors as well.
Now, when you're saying credits, so whether it's because I'm certain that there are a lot of folks who are aware of the EIDL components and the PPP components, but probably not aware of the credits. Are you talking about tax credits at the end of the year, or is it something entirely different?
I'm talking about your tax credit. So credits on your tax return. Now, one of these credits, they say within 3 months you can get the credit on your employment taxes, but some of you don't have employment taxes. So it is a credit at the end of the year. So the employee retention credit is what I'm talking about. And it's available for employers that close or have much reduced gross receipts due to the coronavirus pandemic. The credit is designed to encourage businesses to keep employees on their payroll by providing a refundable tax credit of 50% of up to $10,000 in wages paid by an eligible employer whose business has been financially impacted by COVID-19. So it is a refundable payroll. It is a refundable tax credit of 50% of up to $10,000. Okay, we don't have any calculations on that. This is how the government works. They throw it all out there and they say, here, you should do this, or you can do this. You can file a Form 7200 if you're an employer to advance the credit anticipated for a quarter at any time before the end of the month following the quarter in which the employer paid the qualified wages. So you can get this. Now, are they sending it? I have no idea. I mean, they're waiting on the stimulus money they're sending everybody that's $1,200.
The check's in the mail. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's there. It's a great credit. Like I said, these are tax credits. So there's three you need to think about: the family leave credit, the paid sick leave credit, the retention credit. Okay. I take these I look at these as after the windfall, because all the other stuff is free money and can be done right now. The credits, unless you file the Form 7200, which is to get an advance of the credit, are all tax credits.
Yeah, they're later.
Yeah, so that's why people aren't talking about them, but they're definitely the most underutilized, because they are definitely something that you can do. And if you have a strategist, they can help you, know, like, okay, what else should you apply for? What's going to help you the most? Okay, well, you didn't get the Paycheck Protection Program, but we can still do this credit. So the order at which I would do this is EIDL. First and foremost, you should do the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That's the $10,000.
I think we might have.
Secondly.
Oh, there you are. You're back.
Okay. All right. Let me start over. All right. So
the order in which you would do this.
Yeah, the order in which I would do this. So I'd say first, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Everyone should apply for that, no matter what, for every business that you have that was in operation in 2019 that has gross receipts of any kind. Okay. If you have 5 businesses, apply for 5 of them. Okay?
Yep.
That's first and foremost. Secondly, I would apply for the Paycheck Protection Program if I had any employment taxes at all, whether that's self-employment on my 1040 tax return that I have to file, or employment taxes that I have to do on a 940, 941 for employees.
All right.
Okay? That's your second. Third, I would apply for unemployment if I were in business and could limit paying myself. So that's for the S corps that can control how they're paid. I would apply for the unemployment, because if you can control how much you're paid and you can not take any money from your business for a month or 2 months, you can still get that unemployment because you're not being paid. You control your payments, so I would apply for it. But remember, don't be taking any money for an S corp if you apply for this, because you can control it, but if you then go take money, it's going to look like you were paid. I would also apply for unemployment if I were a business owner, a Schedule C sole proprietor business owner that was not making a net profit right now. And if you're making a small profit, then you can get a partial amount of this.
All right.
And next, after all of that is done, I would look at the credits. And the reason why is because the credits can be done at any time after the fact. They can be claimed on your tax return. So that's why I say credits last after everything else fails. But you can, if you need money and you're like, everything else has failed, I don't know what else to do, you can do an advance of that credit and get some of this money. But, what I'm feeling like is going to happen is it's probably going to be October and everything's going to be back to normal before we know any of how much we can get.
Yeah.
Because everybody's, so up in arms about it. But everything has a timeline. So EIDL, they only have 1 million of those they're giving out. Go do it. Right now, the Paycheck Protection Program only has $349 billion. So even if you only can get a $2,000 loan, now some banks won't do a loan for under $6,000, but I know our community banks are doing them even for a couple $1,000.
Yep.
And then the pandemic unemployment, and you will file regular unemployment if you're an S corp because you're an employee. But if you're a sole proprietorship, you're going to do the pandemic unemployment. That should be ready by states within 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we'll do.
Yep. Well, so I've got the steps listed for you guys. We have unpacked it. Carlotta has done a wonderful job unpacking and trying to sift us through some murky waters. And hopefully this has been helpful for you. And this is going to be an evolving situation. So again, I'm going to go back up here quickly, and I'm going to reshare where you can interact with Carlotta directly. And Carlotta, because you're updating your page as you find out information. I know.
Yeah.
You're putting in,
video. My Facebook page. I'm doing videos all the time. My webpage, carlottathompson.com. You can set up an appointment with me. Like I said, our focus is tax strategy. So we are doing some of this, but our whole goal is to help you implement a tax strategy plan to help you pay the least tax legally possible.
And you know what? Why don't we, if you're okay with it, Carlotta, I would love to bring you back on and just have an episode specifically tied to you talking about some ideas of what that could look like for different businesses, because there's huge value in that. Because listen, we can't just stop our short, intermediate, and long-term planning for our businesses because we're in the middle of a pandemic. Yes, we have to pause and do all the things that we talked about earlier, but we also have to be good stewards of the resources that we have. And that means utilizing every legal, completely appropriate tax strategy available to you to pay the least taxes that you can, because ultimately that money is going to go back into your community. It's going to go back into your employees, and it's going to make a better business that you have. So we will bring Carlotta back on so that we can talk a little bit more about some specific tax strategies that you may be able to use for yourself. But in the meantime, if you don't want to wait and you want to find out what some of those are right now, you can find her at carlottathompson.com, and then you can follow her on Facebook. I think you're the only one on Facebook that I saw, so she's easy to find.
Thompson, tax strategist is
there you go. And you'll find her on there, and follow her, because as these things change, and they will, she will also stay updated. And I'll follow her page as well. And if I see something, I'll pop it into the group TREP Across America. So you can also join us there as well. And these series that we're doing here, these interviews, you can find on YouTube. Go ahead and jump on my YouTube page, JB Brown. I'm the bald bearded one. I think I'm the only one who's JB Brown, who's bald bearded. And you can subscribe and also click a little bell, and you can be notified when new episodes go live, and then watch for us to drop these on iTunes and Stitcher and every other place that we can find. So really, thank you so much, Carlotta, for sharing some of your time and your expertise with us. It's enormously valuable. I learned a lot. And as I am saying to all of you, just keep on keeping on. Keep a level head. We're going to get through this together. We're going to figure this out. And if we do this well, we can come out of this and we can be, stronger than we were before. It just takes us working together, sharing with each other, being a little bit more open, which is not always, as entrepreneurs, our natural inclination, because everyone's worried about, I don't want to share my best secrets. But I promise you, If you do not surround yourself with a group of like-minded people who are also in this fight alongside you, you're missing out, because we will grow much faster and we will be safer collectively if we stick together, especially as small business owners, because we all know there's a lot of money going right now that no one exactly knows where it's going, that's going in the pockets of very large corporations. So we have to kind of help each other out. So thank you, Carlotta. Thank everybody else. And
I appreciate y'all.
we will come back later on this week, and we'll have plenty more interviews next week, and we'll see where this situation takes us. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Take care.